The first step to fixing a problem is admitting that you have a problem in the first place. Just how broken are things in the Cardinals system? The Athletic's Katie Wu drops a bomb of a story about an organization that is in disarray. We'll talk about it today on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. I want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube. Obviously, you can hit us up on Twitter X as well at JD Sports Radio and at LO_Cardinals. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. The right state can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. So the St. Louis Cardinals used to be the creme de la creme, if you will, of the league. All right. They used to be the model that other teams kind of marveled at and strive to become like. You know, it was always consistency. They're always doing things the right way, putting together winning seasons, bringing up great prospects, trading for the right guys. It was nice. It was nice. And it happened for a very, very long time. That has not been the case for a few seasons now. The winning has declined. The playoff wins have stopped altogether. The playoff appearances have absolutely vanished. And now the fans are disappearing from Busch Stadium. The Cardinals have become a shell of their former selves. And change has to happen. Fans have been asking for change since last year. They decided this year, well, you know, we're going to make a couple of additions, but we're going to kind of run it back and see if we can we can get back to where we need to be with the same core group. That didn't work either. They can no longer do things the way that they've done it in the past and still win. Change has to happen. The Cardinal way is no longer a winning way, at least not the Cardinal way that is being portrayed right now. Doesn't mean that the Cardinal way, as we like to call it, is dead by any means. You know, there are still some parts of it that work, but it's time for a makeover. And it appears that the organization is finally willing to admit it and that they need to do something about it, which is good. Because for many years now, we've talked about how, you know, the people in charge, you know, we're fine. We'll get it figured out. We're not worried about it. Now they're starting to worry about it, and perhaps that has something to do with the fan base not showing up this year. Finally, kind of saying, "Look, we've had enough, man. You guys are going in the wrong direction, or just running in place altogether." Something's got to be done, man. This is messed up. And Katie Wu, who covers the Cardinals for The Athletic, who is supposed to come on this show here very, very soon when the season wraps up, already reached out to her before this article even dropped and invited her on. She was like, yeah, absolutely. Let me, you know, when the season's over, I'll come on. So she should be with us sometime very, very soon. But she wrote an article that I've linked in the description. And it was definitely an eye-opener. And there's parts of this article that are good. There are parts of this article that are going to upset some people as well. She got multiple quotes from people within the organization. Apparently, there were plenty of invites to like John Mozeliak and Michael Gersh and guys to comment on the story. Apparently, they said, no, we're not going to. But she was able to get multiple quotes from people within the organization anonymously who have admitted that things are pretty darn bad in the Cardinals organization right now. Now, I don't know how long these particular people and these employees have been with the Cardinals. whether they've been here a while and have kind of witnessed the deterioration of things, or are they somebody who's just come on board in the last year or so and they got here and took a look around and are like, yikes, this is bad. This isn't so good here. Couple of the quotes I'll throw out there for you. I don't know how this was effed up so bad over the last few years. We are no longer developing winning players. It's broken. Our system is broken in a way. How it got there, I don't know. The next quote kind of gives me Patrick Swayze Roadhouse vibes, not the new updated version that was on Amazon. The OG, the Double Deuce, the Patrick Swayze version, where it says, we're in trouble. This is not easily fixable within the next year or a year after. This is going to take some time. And you remember in that movie with Swayze, he says it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's kind of what I think of when I see that quote and when I think about what's going on with the organization altogether. We talk about things that they can do for next year's squad to improve on what is not going to be a losing season this year, but obviously still a very disappointing season where you're not going to the playoffs. And none of the things that I've brought up on this show or that have been talked about by other media members, none of it makes you go, all right, they do this and boom, World Series champions, right? Like that's not where it would be next year. They're not going to all of a sudden be contenders along with some of the bigger teams like, Phillies and the Yankees and the Dodgers and, the topper echelon teams. What those moves could do is put you in a category with guys like, teams like the Brewers and the Guardians and guys that, the Tigers coming out of nowhere, guys that aren't up here with everything, but still play the game in the right way, have the right pieces to be successful. That's where we're looking at. It's just steps in the right direction, which is what we want. You don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again because that doesn't get us anywhere. But it's not something that will just magically turn things around for next year. You hope to improve on what you did this year, but is it going to put you into a playoff spot? Probably not. Probably not. So if that's your expectation that things are just going to, flip and it's going to be like a switch and all of a sudden the Cardinals are going to be pushing for 100 wins next year, you might want to tame those expectations just a little bit. But there are some changes coming, and Katie points them out. So what are they? Well, we'll get into that. And what will Chaim Bloom's role be with all of this for the Cardinals? We'll go through that and what Katie has to say about those things next on Locked On Cardinals. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members, and it is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and then you watch your winnings roll in. Just that simple, right? Sign up today, get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's already guaranteed. One Caleb Williams passing yard. We'll get you one win on PrizePicks every week in September. So if you haven't joined by now, you've already missed 3 weeks of W's that they just gave you. Only 1 yard, though, here this week. He's going to be facing the Rams this weekend. Not a very good defense. He's going to get that yard. So get a win this weekend. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because as soon as September ends, this deal is gone. You could also play PrizePicks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley. And you can find the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On MLB podcast hosted by Sully. He's here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor and prepare you for the Fall Classic every single day on Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. That feedback always welcome and encouraged. Once again, we're talking about this article that a friend of the show, Katie Wu, wrote on The Athletic, theathletic.com, which it's linked in the description, so you can go check it out for yourself. I encourage you to do that. Now, most of us could see the writing on the wall when the Cardinals brought in Chaim Bloom to be an advisor for the team and for John Mozeliak, your president of baseball operations. For those unfamiliar, Chaim Bloom is the former senior vice president of baseball operations for the Rays, and then he became the chief baseball officer for the Red Sox before coming on board with the Cardinals this year. Now, with the Rays, this is where things are very important, because with the Rays, he was the assistant director. Let me make sure I get this said properly. The assistant director of minor league operations in 2008, with responsibility for all aspects of the team's minor league system, including player evaluation and assignments, expansion of video, strength and conditioning, and mental skills initiatives, creating the Rays Way player development manual, and executing individual development plans for organizations' top prospects. So, or just prospects in general, not even top prospects. Now, the key to what he did with the Rays is it's very important. It's very important to what he's going to be doing here in the future for the Cardinals, because according to Katie, Chaim Bloom will be charged with making changes in the Cardinals farm system based on his findings after this season with the team. So it appears that they are finally going to do something about the issues that they've had with developing players. Katie says Bloom's first job will be to hire a new director of player development. Now, she does give them credit for how good the Cardinals used to be at developing players. And this is something that, other well-known journalists in St. Louis, one of my favorites is Bernie Miklasz, he's talked about repeatedly that the Cardinals used to be way ahead of the curve back in the day, in many, many ways, which is why this organization has prospered so well over the last couple of decades. But eventually, whether it be just being smug, whether it be arrogance, whether it's just being cheap or just not paying attention, whatever it may be, laziness, I don't know, whatever it's been, they have fallen behind the times in their ability to develop players properly. And you know how other teams, like in the NFL, for sure, they see an offense or they see a defense and it clicks and it gets them to the playoffs, or they win a championship or whatever. And you always hear the phrase a copycat league, right? Where the other teams will be like, oh, what are they doing? And then they just take whatever that team did, steal it for their own, and then just kind of modify things the way they want to do it. Well, that's kind of what happened with the Cardinals. Other teams began to do what the Cardinals were doing. And then, as time went on, they started to do it better, investing more into it, which is a big part of this. And she lists that as one of the main reasons that the Cardinals model has failed in recent years, is because they decided to not spend as much on player development as these other teams have. She also points out how the Cardinals haven't kept up with other teams when it comes to the amount of coaching and attention that different areas of the game deserve. She points out that the Phillies, the Mets, the Brewers, all teams who at this moment are going to the playoffs, have 14 or more full-time field staffers that focus on just catchers or just base stealing or just infielders or just outfielders. She says, by contrast, the Cardinals do not have an infield, outfield, or a catching coordinator, nor do they employ any full-time roving instructors or any full-time coordinator position in Latin America. Why? Why do they feel like that they can skate by and not have these things while other teams are getting better by having such things? But why do they think that wasn't something that they should be doing? That's a good question, right? According to the story, This is one of the reasons why players get to the big league club and then flame out. She points out that the issues that Jordan Walker has had, Nolan Gorman, Dylan Carlson, Zach Thompson, Matthew Liberatore, Dakota Hudson, Ivan Herrera. You know the names. We've seen guys like Lane Thomas and Randy Arozarena and Adolis Garcia and many others. They move on to other organizations and find success. And we always ask, why does this keep happening to the Cardinals? Well, what are we doing wrong here where these guys aren't fulfilling what we think they're going to be in a Cardinals uniform? And yet, as soon as they escape town, they start to flourish in other places. Why can't the Cardinals, give these guys the proper instruction and the expert tutelage to make them capable big league players for the Cardinals? Like, what's the problem here? One of the reasons that was brought up in this article is just basic fundamentals. According to the article, one staffer said, where we're seeing guys really take a hit, these guys do not know the fundamentals of the game, which is something that the Cardinal way, the way I grew up with that Cardinal way, that was what it was all about, was doing the little things right. And it's stuff that I've noticed from watching teams, like the Brewers and like the Guardians, who aren't spending $200 million on rosters, but yet they continue to win ball games. Teams that don't really have a massive edge in actual talent than the Cardinals do, outside of, guys like Jose Ramirez, obviously a special talent. Willy Adames has been a monster for the Brewers this year. But the thing that I notice about those teams is that they do those little things right. They take these competitive at-bats where they're just fouling stuff off all the time. They always seem to be in the right position defensively. They make the basic plays on defense. They take advantage of the other team's weaknesses by doing all the little things right, which is something that the Cardinals used to be very, very good at and do it better than everybody else, and they don't do that anymore. Things have drastically fallen off. She also brings up payroll and how, according to people she talked to, ownership basically gives John Mozeliak a set amount of money to split between the Cardinals' entire baseball operations department. And the front office has repeatedly chosen to invest in the big league team. Those decisions resulted in repeated cuts to player development, both stateside and in Latin America. And then, of course, she points out that the money that they do decide to spend on the big league club, they spend it poorly. They make bad decisions. They've made bad trades in recent years. A few years back, that wasn't really the case. The Cardinals were winning a lot of trades. And she kind of points out, outside of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado trades, that a lot of them have been bad and that the returns have been horrible. And we know this. You've been watching this stuff go on over and over again. Look what the Cardinals got back for Tyler O'Neill. Horrible. And that's one of the reasons too, Dylan Carlson, horrible. And these were two of the pillars of your outfield that you were going to build around. You hang on to them too long, and then you trade them away when their value's at their lowest. You don't get anything in return. Tyler O'Neill had a monster year for Boston this year. Dylan Carlson hasn't done much since he had a little hot streak in Tampa Bay, but he hasn't done much there. But still, we were talking about Dylan Carlson as part of a package for Juan Soto at one time. And now you traded him for a relief pitcher that you designated for assignment this year. Just brutal stuff. So all of these things that, we've pointed out before, but at least it's finally getting acknowledgement, right? It's getting acknowledgement now from people inside the organization. They're speaking out. They're willing to talk about this. And hopefully it does bring on the necessary changes to get this organization back to where we all want it to be, which is on top. You want to get on top of the NL Central, then you want to get on top of the National League, and then on top of Major League Baseball altogether. Now, who is going to lead this as far as on the field, right? Who's in charge here? So she does touch on the returns of Oli Marmol and other members of the coaching staff. And what she says is probably going to piss some people off. We'll tell you what it is next on Locked On Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. I've got some favorites around the country that I've been lucky enough to go to. New York, Boston, Vegas, Miami, San Diego, L.A., Nashville, Kansas City, hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. All available in those cities and everywhere else in the U.S. at Booking.com. Now, you might find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival city like Chicago or Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee, San Francisco. Great place to visit right now. I mean, it'd be nice to be at those games this weekend and visiting the Golden Gate area. The Bay Area is it's a cool place. My grandparents used to live in San Francisco. Definitely an interesting place to go. If you get to go to Alcatraz, do it. Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you. Booking.com can help you book a stay that's close to your home teams or rival stadium. So no matter what team you're rooting for coming up here in the postseason, because it's not going to be the Cardinals, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts to cute bed and breakfast stays, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals, at Booking.com. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has you covered every single day. Find that link to Locked On MLB in the description so you don't need to search. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You're a team every day. So John Mozeliak has a contract through 2025. You should be familiar with this by now. We've talked about it a lot. After that, he has said that he is planning on stepping down from his current job as president of baseball operations. And most believe that he won't just retire and just vanish or anything like that, that he'll take on a different role within the organization. But he wouldn't be in charge of what's going to happen as far as, everyday baseball related stuff. The coaching staff on the field is his group right now. Oli Marmol and company, those are his guys. Oli's his guy. We've heard that, if they were going to fire Oli, that if they wanted him out, then Mo was going with him. That's the kind of connection those guys have right now. They're in it together, right? You get the extension for Oli this offseason. Whether we all liked it or not, that was Mo saying, he's the guy, and I'm putting everything I got behind him. The expectation, according to Katie Wu, is that Oli Marmol is going to be returning for 2025. Sign that 2-year extension before the season would take him through 2026. Bench coach Daniel Descalso also signed through 2025, as is their pitching coach Dusty Blake. Their base coach Pop Warner signed an extension through 2026 in spring training shortly after Marmol. She also says 5 coaches are up for negotiation after the season, including hitting coaches Turner Ward and Brandon Allen. Stubby Clapp, Packy Elkins, who's their game planning coach, their assistant pitching coach, Julio Rangel, also up for negotiations. And she says, though the Cardinals were one of the National League's worst offensive teams this season, there is mutual interest in retaining all of this year's coaching staff, including the hitting coaches. Now, personally, whether you like it or not, I don't think Oli has done that bad of a job. I have been not as hard on Oli as most people have. But that's me. You don't have to agree with me, and that's fine. We can disagree on that. No big deal. Most fans are done with him, and it's basically because the team's been losing too. If they had been winning, would they think Oli's that bad of a manager? I doubt it. Was he that bad his first year when they went to the playoffs? Well, I remember hearing a lot of people complaining about him. I also feel, personally, that Dusty Blake has done a rather fine job. Much better here in year 2 than he was last year. I think the bullpen's been very, very good. The rotation, in my opinion, has held up their end of the bargain. outside of Miles Michaelis. The offense obviously has been an issue. Far too many guys underachieving in back-to-back years. And for whatever reason, the Major League coaching staff cannot seem to fix these guys. And that's where I have a problem. They end up sending these guys back down instead of fixing them at the Major League level. Well, we're going to send you down. We don't have time for you up here. You go down there and figure things out. That's a problem for me. Like, you should be able to fix that. You're supposed to be the top guys. You're supposed to be able to fix them. You shouldn't have to send them down to get them fixed. So I'd be disappointed if something wasn't done with the hitting coaches. But perhaps, after reading this article, maybe it isn't firing these guys that is actually the answer. Maybe it's hiring other guys to go along with them that needs to happen to help them fulfill their jobs better. Instead of addition by subtraction, maybe it's more addition to help them that will do this roster some good. I don't know what Turner Ward teaches behind closed doors, but you've heard people stick up for the coaching staff saying, no, it's not preparation. It's not that they're not doing their jobs. It's really on us. Maybe they're spread a little too thin. Maybe that's the thing. Either way, it's a great piece by Katie. Again, I'll get her on the show as soon as we can, as soon as the season wraps up. And, I've only touched on some of what she goes into in this article. I gave you kind of the meat and potatoes of it all here, but there's plenty more that you should go into and read and check it out for yourself and develop your own opinions on what you think is going on with the Cardinals and what you think should happen. I would love to hear from you, though. Drop your comments down below on the video. Obviously, you can hit me up on Twitter X anytime you want, and we can do a discussion there as well. When the season wraps up this weekend in San Francisco, there will apparently be more clarity given on how things will all shake out. I know last year they ran and hid following their horrible season, and they didn't do a postseason press conference to talk about things, which was very cowardly on their part. It was really weird, but apparently they're not going to do that this time. Okay, so hopefully we'll get some answers and we'll know what the direction of the team is coming up here real soon. For now, what I can tell you is we've got 3 games remaining on the schedule. Cardinals are 81-78. They will not have a losing record this season. They are guaranteed to at least finish 500. Tough loss yesterday. If you saw my crossover with Paul at Locked on Rockies, it was tough to watch because, you got 2 outs in the 8th inning, 3-run lead, and the Rockies score 5. And I get it in situations where you want to see what some of these young guys have to offer. Can they get themselves out of trouble? Fernandez and Leahy, it's part of the learning process. These games technically don't really mean a whole lot between those 2 clubs, but it was tough to watch them just go down in flames like that. 3-run lead in the 8th inning, and then you blow that and end up losing. So that was tough. I was hoping for the sweep. It was something that hadn't been done apparently in Colorado in 20 years. Cardinals haven't swept the Rockies, who have not been a very good team in recent years, but doesn't matter now. We're moving on to San Francisco. You got Miles Michaelis pitching tonight. Is it going to be his last time in a Cardinals uniform? I don't know. But then you got Andre Palante going on Saturday, and then Michael McGreevy on Sunday, and then changes begin. The new era begins. Should be an interesting offseason, that's for sure, and I'll be right here with you the entire time to help guide you through it all. So thank you for making Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter X at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube, help our channel and our love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. We will see you next time on Locked on Cardinals.